What's up guys, my name is Gary and you're watching Gary Mason Travels. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about my top 5 travel tips. Now why 5? Why not 10? The answer is twofold if I'm honest with you. 1, 5 is a digestible amount. I'm keeping my videos short and snappy to the point so you can all get back to your lives. And second of all, it's hay fever season and all this plant loving is really irritating my face. So there you go, there's 2 of them. And why, what's the reasons for you listening to me? Because there are a lot of blogs out there and you could be asking yourself, why should I listen to this guy? Because I have travelled almost half a decade in India, backpacking on a budget. So I at least have picked up some information that would be useful for you. And I think that is reasonable to presume. And so I'm going to give you my top 5 tips now. And of course there are many, many more. And if you do want to know anything, you know what to do. Just leave your questions in the comment section and I will get back to you. So without further ado, let's get on with it, shall we? Now my first tip is to do with the world famous Delhi belly. It's famous for all the wrong reasons and some of you might be wondering, is it actually a thing? Yes, yes it is. Pretty much anybody who visits India is going to have a problem with their digestive system for one reason or another. Now that could just be you've got an issue with the food because the food is very rich and well spiced, and many people, most people, is going to find that difficult to integrate into their digestive system. Now you can minimize this is quite straightforward if this is the issue, by not jumping in and just eating all local food. As delicious as it is, don't do that. What I usually do is I have a Western breakfast, of course, when I first arrive, and if you have a Western breakfast, that option is going to be available to you if you've just arrived, because you're probably going to be in a tourist area, so utilize it, have some tourist food, and then in the evening you can have local food while you get used to it. The second reason why you were going to have issues with the digestive system is a bit of an issue when it comes to tourist food, because pretty much all of the worst cases of food poisoning that I've ever had have been from tourist restaurants. And this is simple. It's because the products that you use for tourist food cost considerably more than it would do if you was going to make a delicious chana masala. So people are reluctant to throw them away. That coupled with poor food handling procedures, and this is not unique to just tourist restaurants, just count on it. And that, and also the perfect conditions for bacteria to breed, that is going to cause you an upset stomach. And without doubt, the worst cases of food poisoning, just to reiterate that, and when I say worst, I mean life-threatening cases of food poisoning that I've ever had, all of them have been from tourist restaurants. So use your head. When you walk into a restaurant, have a look around, and sometimes this can be very deceptive because you can get this nice shiny restaurant that's really gleaming, and you have a glimpse into the kitchen and it looks like a medieval rubbish dump. So you sort of try and have a look to see what that's like. As much as I don't eat the stuff in my own country, things like McDonald's, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Nando's, Costa Coffee, this stuff is all available all over India. And this is going to be a safe bet for you when it comes to food hygiene practices. And sometimes I use them as a method of not getting sick. And but you need to use your own judgment when you look at a local place. Does it look like it's going to kill you? And some of them could potentially do that. Here we go. I'm going to introduce this picture. Let's have a look right now. So if your restaurant looks like this, it's going to make you sick. You can see the raw sewage flowing underneath the restaurant. And have a look, see who the clientele is. If the restaurant is full of people, then the odds are then the food is good, and it's an indicator that there's a high turnover of products. So this is what you're looking for, particularly if you eat in local restaurants. These are called dabbas, and sometimes they look really grimy, and they're really grimy. But a lot of the time they are pure veg. I always aim for the pure veg ones, and they're made fresh every day. I've worked in several dabbas to have a good insight into how they do things, because I'm a chef. It's very interesting, and I can tell you I've not worked in one and everything has not been fresh on that day, and that is crucial to you getting sick or not. So these are a good bet. And if in the event that you do get sick, and this could easily happen to you, you can go to a pharmacist and you can buy Lopamide. Lopamide doesn't cure anything, but if you've got a long bus journey particularly, that's very helpful because it's a stopper. It blocks you up. Don't take too much of it, because it'll block you up in a way that it's just going to take weeks for your things to get going again, and it's just not fun. It's not fun. Don't do that. But as I said, it doesn't cure anything. In the event that the symptoms don't persist, because food poisoning in India is much, much worse than anything that I've ever experienced in England. You can buy very strong antibiotics right over the counter, like norfloxacin or ciprofloxacin, but you can do that without a prescription. You don't, oddly, you don't need to see a doctor about that. You can buy them from some off licenses, you know, and you purchase it, because I'm guessing local people get sick as often as we, well, maybe not as often, but they must frequently get sick for them to be able to, you'd be able to buy this antibiotics from a convenience store. So that is an indicator of that. So there are precautions that you can take to stop yourself from getting sick, and this comes from years of getting sick and having to go to hospital. So listen to what I'm saying. Oh, before I finish up, ORS salts. They're very, very strong rehydration salts. In our country, we have Dyrolite, and they're puny compared to the ORS salts. They're like 5-6 rupees. Put one of them in a litre of water, because you will obviously be losing a lot of water in the event that you do get sick. Then do that, because that really makes a lot of difference. I keep them anyway, ORS salts. If you're going up into the desert, if you're going up in the mountains, they're really, really useful, and I recommend that you always have them on you anyway. So to wrap it up, if you're going to eat in a restaurant, use your common sense. If it looks unusable, don't go ahead and use it just because it sells pizza and pasta, because it could really, really hurt you. And take it slow with the spices. That's very important as well. Eventually you'll get to the point where you don't need anything else. You can just eat your local food every single day, and why not? It's all delicious, but take it slow. So my second tip, utilise the tourist quota. What's the tourist quota? Well, the Indian government sets aside a number of seats for foreign tourists, and this is super duper useful. And you need to go to a government office to be able to utilise this service. Many tourists are unaware it's even there. If you go to a travel agent, they will not have access to this. You can access it if you use the government website for the trains, but as I understand it, I've never tried, because it's got such a reputation of being so impossibly difficult to utilise that most people just give up. So I know it's possible. Save yourself the grey hair and go to an office. There's several offices. Every large city has an office. Some of them have windows, like Jodhpur just has a window. Delhi has a big giant office with air conditioned, with sofas, and you take a seat, and it's very, very organised. And there's a lot of reasons why this is very good. It's not just that they can make your seats magic themselves out of thin air when everything is booked up, because you have to remember that the Indian Railway Service is the biggest employer of human beings on the planet. It's really, really busy, and the seats can get booked up months in advance. So it pays to utilize the tourist quota, because if you decide a few days before that you want to come over here and you try and book a seat, I'm betting you there isn't any seats. So they just appear. And the other advantage to going into a tourist office is they can advise you of alternative routes, and they can tell you things that you need to know that you wouldn't otherwise, like train numbers and things like that. And this is very, very useful because there are over 3,000 train stations on the Indian railways. It is a marvel of engineering. I'm not really a big engineering geek. I'm a geek in other ways, but not really an engineering geek. But even I look at the railways and think, wow. And so it really pays to speak to somebody who can help you make sense of it all. And the guys that you speak to in the offices are used to dealing with tourists, and not only that, they can make sense of this otherwise impossible system. So that is definitely something that I would recommend. Please do utilize the tourist quota. It will make your trip so much more simple. And what I do, before I wrap this particular tip up, is I book about 4 trains in advance, because I will always take the train if it is possible, because they're more comfortable than the bus, right? And this is a good system, and because you never know when the opportunity is going to come up again for you to be able to utilize the tourist quota. So sit down. Yes, it puts your trip onto a timer, but I usually book 4 trains in advance. Then that way it costs a little tiny bit more, but you definitely get a seat. You're not going to get stranded, and you can opt for the comfort. I mean, these seats, they really do come out of nowhere. And I've found even when the train's booked, you can even pick what bunk you want to go on to. I don't know how they do it. But whatever the case is, for the sake of your own sanity, for the ease of your own trip, utilize the tourist quota. My third tip is get used to bargaining. Now, it is not in our culture very much to bargain. If you're coming from the West, everything's got a price tag on it. You walk in a shop and you pay that price. It's not something that you can bargain for. Whereas in India, bargaining is a way of life, and it can be quite difficult for you to get your head round. And it's a kind of game. And tourists, they tend to take it in 2 ways. One, they say a price, like you asked how much, I don't know, this jet is, and you ask a price and people go, well, that's too much, and just walk out. And then on the other hand, some tourists, they just pay it. That's not how much it costs. It's a game. It's a kind of game, you know, where you just sort of negotiate. You negotiate for a price. So what I tend to do is when somebody says, how much is this dress? And they're going to tell you a price that's much, much more than it's supposed to be. So I cut the price in half, and then I say, which I know is too low, and you just sort of meet in the middle, and that's how it works. You just sort of gingerly bargain, and I know that's quite a foreign concept, but unless you want to get ripped off often or not wind up with anything, you're going to have to learn how to bargain, and that is a good system. When I first started traveling, I didn't want to take money out of the vendors' mouths, but I didn't want to get ripped off either. So I really, really struggled with it. But then it dawned on me that no vendor is going to sell anything in negative equity. So you just sort of feel around for what that is. Shopping as a whole is a very different experience in India. You know, you walk into a shop and you are mauled by people who, the shopkeepers who want to show you everything. They want to pull everything out and tell you everything about every product. And that is not how we do things. In the UK, at least, if you walk into a shop, nothing's going to happen unless you specifically ask for a service. That is definitely not the case in India. When a customer comes into a shop in India, they expect a service, they expect attention. That's why people come up to you and want to pull everything out and tell you everything about everything in the shop. And that's enough to drive you out of the shop, right? But that's just a cultural difference. That is just also something else that you are going to have to put aside, the cultural differences. I mean, I am sure when Indian people come to the UK and walk into a shop, they must think the service is awful because they want you to come up and ask you questions. You can, if you can't deal with the fact that that's a cultural difference, because it can become very stressful, you can opt to shop at the bigger branded shops like Bata or Decathlon or something like that. These things are price tagged, and no, you cannot bargain. Tip number 4, shop around for a place to stay and don't book anything online. That's right, do not book anything online. That's counterintuitive, because many people, they get really scared at the idea of not having a place to sleep when you turn up somewhere. That will cost you money. It's not like it is in the UK. If you do that, then you will pay the same and sometimes less if you go through booking.com, right? That's not the case in India. There's a couple of reasons why I don't encourage this. One, you pay for a middleman and it's reasonably substantial, and over the course of a long trip you will definitely feel it. And the other reason why I don't encourage it is because there doesn't seem to be any law whatsoever of putting pictures up of another hotel or your hotel from years ago, and quite often that's not what you will be getting. And I've seen a lot of disappointed faces, not just the foreigners, of Indians as well, who've come away on their honeymoon, come to a hotel and it is not what it says in the cover. So that takes away your extras. Once it's paid for, it's paid for. So what I tend to do is when I turn up somewhere, I will have a look around. And if you're in a couple, this is very, very beneficial because somebody can wait with the luggage while you go around and you have a look, and you can take in the 10 hotels if you want, and you can get a good price. And also that is something that you can bargain for, the cost of your room. I mean, it depends on how many of them are you, how long you stay in, what services we'll be using, the time of year. You've got lots of things that you can bargain with, and you will get a much better price if you walk in. And as well, if somebody's waiting with the luggage, that insinuates that you already have a place to stay. That will definitely save you money, because you're coming in at a winning streak, because no proprietor is going to want perfectly good money to walk out of their hotel. That's a very good tip, and I've used it many times. If you want a good price to stay and you want to stay in your chosen accommodation that won't necessarily be uncomfortable, don't book in advance. There is no need to take the first thing that comes along. And also, before I wrap up this tip, I will tell you that a lot of people, taxi drivers and random people out on the street, will be in cahoots with several hotels. When you turn up to a tourist area, a friendly person who walks up to you and says, "Oh, you need a place to stay," trust me, when they take you to a hotel that will be of their choice, and they will be getting a commission for it, and you will be paying for their commission essentially, because they will put the price up. Sometimes, not always, most of the time this will be the case. You are going to have to pay for them bringing you there. And sometimes when you walk into a hotel, they just walk behind you, and you've got to make it clear they are not with you. These people are just trying to earn a living, but it can become annoying for you if you're going to be the person paying for it. And so beware of touts. Taxi drivers particularly can be stressful, because they want you to stay wherever it is that they want you to stay. Now, what you can do is instead of going to a hotel that you might have seen on Lonely Planet or something like that, you can pay for your rickshaw or taxi or however it is to drop you at a nearby landmark. This will put the initial cost up. Often, particularly in North India and the tourist areas, this will put the cost of your journey up initially, because the driver can't get any money out of you. You know, you could just say, "Oh well, I'm just meeting some friends" or something like that. Frankly, it's nobody's business. But this can get quite pushy, and this is something that I do personally. I say, "Okay, I'm going to go to this landmark on a fountain," and then then you stop in a restaurant, one person waits with the bag. Also, if you're a solo traveller, and this is golden for you, you can find a coffee shop, a tourist coffee shop or something like that, and you can say, look, buy a coffee obviously, and you just leave your bag there, and then you can just walk around. If you're not in a couple, that's a good way around that issue. So shop around for the best place to stay, because you will save yourself a hell of a lot of money. That is a very good tip, in my opinion, because accommodation is a ongoing problem that we're going to, every traveller, every backpacker is going to have to face, because it's something that happens every single day. Before I wrap that up, you can also pay for long haul. When you're paying for a long haul train, try and get one that goes at night, and if you do that, then that doubles up as your hotel as well. Particularly if you sleep in a sleeper class train, that will almost certainly save you money, actually. So try and amalgamate that together with your plans if it is possible. Again, if you go into a tourist office, they are very likely to be able to help you to do that. So my last tip number 5, download the Uber and Ola apps, because taxis are very negotiable, and sometimes if you don't know how much something should be costing, the odds are this is when you're going to get ripped off the most. Uber and Ola apps don't work everywhere in the country. They don't work in rural areas, but most large towns, they will be perfectly good for you to use, and I recommend that you utilise the space age world for that, because otherwise you're going to spend some time arguing, trying to get a reasonable price when you could be having that all along. The Uber and Ola apps are the same as you get in your own country, and I recommend you download that app before you turn up. So because I've heard reports of people finding it very difficult to do it once they're on the road. Now, there was a lot of experience there, and I've made a lot of mistakes to be able to tell you that. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you found it of value. And to be honest, I think they are things that you will be able to refer to again and again, because these are issues that we face daily. So they are my top 5 tips for you. There will be lots more coming, but I can only make so many videos at a time. And if you did like my content, by the way, please like and subscribe, because that helps me to continue doing what I'm doing. And all the information that I have here is free, and that's cost me a lot of money to be able to be in a position to be able to tell you this. I mean, it's not the greatest thing in the world. I've been conned a lot of times to be able to tell you that. So yeah, so until the next time, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video.